I'm Undine, 32 years old, a marketing executive in New York who thought I had it all. A successful career, a beautiful home, and what I believed was a loving marriage of 5 years to Michael. My younger sister Jasmine always had a way of taking what was mine, but I never imagined she'd take my husband too. When my parents chose to cover up their betrayal rather than stand by me, I was devastated. But sometimes life gives you perfect opportunities for justice, like my sister's baby shower. Let me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would. Growing up in our suburban family home in Connecticut, I always felt like I was living in my sister's shadow. My father Thomas was a successful corporate attorney, and my mother Eleanor taught English at the local high school. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family, but inside our home, there was a clear imbalance that shaped my entire childhood. Jasmine is 5 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, she became the golden child. I was just 7 when she arrived, and I vividly remember how my bedroom was converted into a nursery because it got better light, while I was moved to the smaller room at the end of the hall. This pattern of prioritizing Jasmine's needs and wants continued throughout our lives. On Jasmine's birthdays, my parents would throw elaborate parties with professional entertainers, custom cakes, and expensive gifts. For my birthdays, we usually had a simple dinner at home with maybe 1 or 2 friends invited over. One year, when I turned 16, I had been hoping for months to get the camera I had been saving up for. My parents gave me a journal instead, saying I needed to be more practical about my interests. 3 months later, when Jasmine turned 11, they surprised her with that exact camera model, even though she had never expressed any interest in photography. Christmas mornings followed the same pattern. Jasmine's pile of gifts always towered over mine, and my parents would film her opening presents with delight, while I sat quietly opening my sensible gifts, usually clothes or books. When I brought up the disparity once as a teenager, my mother dismissed it, saying, "Jasmine just gets excited about things in a way you don't, Undine. We're trying to match your personalities." School achievements were another area where the double standard was obvious. When I made honor roll consistently throughout high school, it was expected. "Of course you did well, you always study," my father would say with a dismissive nod. But when Jasmine brought home even a B, my parents celebrated as if she'd won a Nobel Prize, taking her out for special dinners and hanging her mediocre report cards on the refrigerator. Despite all this, I worked hard to forge my own path. I graduated at the top of my class in high school, earned a scholarship to NYU, and built a career in marketing that made me financially independent by my mid-20s. I found satisfaction in creating my own success, even if my family never seemed to fully appreciate it. I met Michael when I was 27 at a friend's rooftop party in Brooklyn. He was tall with kind eyes and an easy laugh that immediately drew me in. As a software engineer for a tech startup, he was intelligent and ambitious, but also down to earth. On our first date, he asked thoughtful questions about my work and actually listened to my answers, something I wasn't used to from the men I'd dated before. After 2 years of dating, Michael proposed during a weekend trip to the Berkshires. It was a perfect autumn day, the leaves were changing, and as we hiked to a scenic overlook, he got down on one knee. I'd never felt so certain about anything in my life as I did saying yes to him. Our wedding was small but beautiful. My parents contributed the minimum they felt socially obligated to, but it didn't matter to me. What I remember most about that day was how Michael looked at me as I walked down the aisle like I was the only person in the world. The first few years of our marriage were genuinely happy. We bought a brownstone in Park Slope that needed some work and spent weekends painting walls and hunting for furniture in vintage shops. We talked about starting a family once Michael's company went public, which seemed just on the horizon. I felt like I had finally created the stable, loving home I'd always wanted. When I introduced Michael to my family, he seemed to see through the dynamics immediately. After our first holiday dinner with them, he commented on how differently my parents treated Jasmine and me. "It's like they're blind to how amazing you are," he said, holding my hand as we drove back to the city. His observation made me feel seen in a way I never had before. Jasmine predictably didn't take well to Michael. At first, she tried flirting with him at family gatherings, touching his arm when she laughed or asking him for help with trivial things. When he remained devoted to me, she switched tactics, making subtle jabs about how I trapped such a good catch or wondering aloud if he was really satisfied with our life together. Michael would always defend me, which only seemed to fuel Jasmine's resentment. This wasn't the first time Jasmine had tried to sabotage my relationships. In high school, she once told my boyfriend I was cheating on him, which ended our relationship. In college, She accidentally spilled wine all over a guy I had been dating for months, right before meeting our parents for the first time. But with Michael, I felt secure. He saw through her games, and it actually brought us closer together. "Your sister needs to grow up," he told me after a particularly tense Thanksgiving dinner, where Jasmine had made a scene about not being seated next to Michael. "I don't know why your parents enable her behavior, but we don't have to play along." His solidarity made me feel protected and validated. For the first time, I had someone firmly in my corner, someone who understood the family dynamic I'd been subjected to my entire life. What I couldn't have known then was how quickly things would change once Jasmine moved from Connecticut to New York after losing her job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. My parents helped her secure an apartment just 20 minutes from our home, insisting it would be nice for us sisters to be close again. Kshits. If only I had recognized the warning signs sooner. The first changes in Michael were subtle, so subtle that I almost convinced myself I was imagining things. It started around 3 months after Jasmine moved to New York. Michael began working later hours at the office, which wasn't completely unusual given his position, but the frequency increased. Whereas before he might stay late once or twice a month for major project deadlines, suddenly it was 2 or 3 nights every week. "The investor presentation is coming up," he'd explain with a quick kiss as he headed out the door earlier than usual. "Don't wait up, I might be really late tonight." I trusted him completely, so I didn't question these explanations at first. But then I noticed another odd pattern. Michael, who had always found reasons to avoid family gatherings with my parents, and Jasmine suddenly became enthusiastic about them. "Your mum called about Sunday dinner this weekend," he mentioned casually one evening as we were getting ready for bed. I told her we'd be there. When I raised an eyebrow, surprised by his newfound enthusiasm for family time, he shrugged. "I know they can be a lot, but they're still your family. I thought it might be nice." What was stranger was how often he suggested we include Jasmine in our plans. "Why don't we see if Jasmine wants to join us for dinner?" Or, "Maybe Jasmine would like that new movie too." This from the man who once said my sister needed to grow up and stop inserting herself into our lives. Then came the changes in his phone habits. Michael and I had always been open with our devices. Not that we snooped, but there was a casual transparency between us. If his phone buzzed while he was in the shower, I might check to see if it was important. If I needed to look up something and my phone was in another room, I'd use his. Suddenly his phone was never more than an arm's length away. He took it to the bathroom, kept it face down on tables, and I noticed he'd added a passcode, something he'd never bothered with before. Once when I picked up his phone to check the time while mine was charging, he practically lunged across the room to take it from my hands. "Sorry," he said, looking flustered. "Work stuff. Confidential investor information." The text notifications became frequent often late at night, and he'd smile at his screen in a way that made my stomach twist. When I'd ask who it was, the answer was always, "Just work," or "The guy's making plans." One evening, Michael told me he needed to work late again. It was the 3rd time that week, and something in me finally snapped. I called his office around 8 p.m, only to have his assistant tell me he'd left at 5:30. My heart pounding, I drove past Jasmine's apartment on a hunch. Michael's silver Audi was parked half a block away, poorly hidden behind a delivery truck. I sat in my car for almost an hour, sick to my stomach, trying to convince myself there must be an innocent explanation. When he came home around 11 p.m, I confronted him. "You weren't at the office tonight." His face flickered with surprise before settling into a practiced, neutral expression. "What are you talking about?" Of course I was. I called. "Amanda said you left at 5:30. He barely missed a beat. "Right. But then I went to the client's office for a strategy session. We're working on their rebranding, and it's easier to do it at their place sometimes." "Which client?" I pressed. "Metronome Software." The name came too quickly, too rehearsed. "That's interesting because I drove by Jasmine's apartment tonight, and your car was parked down the street." His expression changed anger, replacing the fake confusion. "Are you following me now? Jesus, Undine, what's wrong with you? Jasmine needed help setting up her new TV. I stopped by for 20 minutes on my way to the client meeting." For 20 minutes at 8 p.m, and you didn't think to mention this to me, because I knew you'd overreact exactly like this. You've always been jealous of your sister, and now you're imagining things that aren't there. The gaslighting was so blatant, it left me speechless. Michael had never spoken to me like this before. He'd always been the one to acknowledge the unhealthy dynamics with Jasmine, and now he was using them against me. I called my friend Lauren the next day. We'd been friends since college, and she was one of the few people who truly understood my family situation. "Something's going on with Michael and Jasmine," I told her, my voice breaking. I can feel it. Have you found any concrete evidence? Lauren asked, practical as always. Not exactly. Just behavior changes, lies about where he's been, his car at her apartment. You need to know for sure before you confront him again, Lauren advised. Check your bank statements, his emails if you can. I know it feels wrong, but you need to protect yourself. Taking her advice, I logged into our joint bank account that evening while Michael was in the shower. There it was. Evidence I couldn't ignore. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to, a jewelry store, purchased for $400 right before Jasmine's birthday hotel bar tabs in the middle of weekday afternoons. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of suspicious transactions. When I tried to discuss these findings with Michael, he flew into a rage, accusing me of spying on him and not trusting him. Those restaurant charges were business lunches. The jewelry was a gift for my mother. And the hotel bars, that's where I meet clients who are in town. He had an explanation for everything, but none of it felt right. His anger seemed designed to put me on the defensive, to make me feel guilty for questioning him rather than addressing my legitimate concerns. I think we should see a marriage counselor, I suggested after one particularly heated argument. We don't need a therapist, he snapped. We need you to stop being paranoid and controlling. That night, as Michael slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how my loving husband had transformed into this defensive stranger. Deep down, I already knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to face what it would mean for my life, my marriage, and my already complicated family relationships. The moment you discover the two people you should have been able to trust most in the world have betrayed you is like having the ground disappear beneath your feet. For me, that moment came on a rainy Saturday in October, 6 months after Jasmine moved to New York. Michael had told me he was flying to Chicago for a weekend conference. He'd shown me his flight confirmation email, mentioned the panels he was looking forward to attending, even packed his suitcase while on a work call so I could hear him discussing the agenda with colleagues. The performance was flawless, but as I was folding laundry that Friday evening, I found a crumpled receipt in his jeans pocket for a local gas station from that morning, hours after he was supposedly on a plane to Chicago. My hands trembled as I smoothed out the paper, staring at the timestamp and location that proved he had lied. I called the hotel where the conference was being held, asking to be connected to Michael Brennan's room. I'm sorry we don't have anyone by that name registered with us, the receptionist informed me. That night I barely slept. By morning I had made my decision. I texted Lauren. I need to know for sure. I'm going to Jasmine's. Want me to come with you? She responded immediately. No, this is something I need to do alone. I drove to Jasmine's upscale apartment building in downtown Brooklyn, my stomach in knots. It was just past 9 a.m. when I parked across the street. I wasn't even sure if Michael would be there or what exactly I planned to do if he was. Part of me still desperately hoped there was another explanation. At 9:47, my worst fears were confirmed. Michael's silver Audi pulled into a visitor spot in front of Jasmine's building. He got out carrying a tray of coffee cups and a paper bag that looked like it contained breakfast. He was whistling, actually whistling, as he punched in the door code and disappeared inside. I sat frozen in my car, watching the building entrance, feeling like I might vomit. 30 minutes passed before I found the courage to approach the building. A resident exiting held the door for me, unwittingly giving me access. I knew Jasmine lived on the 4th floor apartment 412. My legs felt wooden as I climbed the stairs, avoiding the elevator where I might be seen. Outside her door, I paused. Voices drifted through the thin walls. Laughter murmured conversations, the domestic sounds of a shared breakfast. I raised my hand to knock, then lowered it again. Instead, I moved to the living room window that faced the street, peering through a gap in the curtains. What I saw shattered any remaining doubts. Michael and Jasmine were curled up together on her couch, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. Coffee cups sat forgotten on the table as he kissed her. Not a friendly peck, but deeply intimately. She was wearing his Northwestern University t-shirt, the one I'd bought him for Christmas. I must have made a sound because they both looked up suddenly. Our eyes met through the window. For one suspended moment, nobody moved. Then everything exploded into motion. I pounded on the door beyond caring about dignity or composure. Michael opened it, his face ashen. Undine, he stammered. This isn't... We were just... I pushed past him into the apartment. Jasmine stood in the center of the living room, wearing nothing but Michael's shirt and underwear, her expression a mixture of shock and something else, something that looked almost like satisfaction. How long? I demanded, my voice barely recognizable to my own ears. They exchanged glances, having one of those silent communications that only comes from intimacy. Just tell me how long this has been going on. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. About 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. It had started almost immediately after Jasmine moved to New York. Why? I looked directly at my sister. You could have any man you wanted. Why did it have to be my husband? Jasmine shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like another slap in the face. Michael and I connect on a level you and he never did. He wasn't happy, Undine. You were always so busy with work, so focused on your career. Don't you dare try to blame this on me, I hissed. He's my husband. You're my sister. There is no justification for what you've done. Michael stepped forward, reaching for my arm. Undine, please. Let's talk about this rationally. It just happened. We didn't mean to hurt you. I jerked away from his touch. Didn't mean to hurt me? You've been lying to my face for months. You let me think I was crazy when I suspected something. You gaslit me in our own home. You were never supposed to find out like this, Jasmine said, as if that somehow made it better. How was I supposed to find out? Were you going to sit me down for a friendly chat about how you've been sleeping with my husband? Send an announcement card, a text message. We care about you, Michael insisted. We were trying to figure out the right way to tell you. The right way would have been for you not to betray me in the first place. I was shouting now, years of feeling second best to Jasmine erupting alongside the fresh pain of betrayal. You always have to be so perfect, don't you? Jasmine snapped, her pretense of sympathy vanishing. Always the victim, always the one everyone should feel sorry for, because Mum and Dad liked me better. Well, guess what? Michael likes me better too. He loves me. Michael winced but didn't contradict her. His silence was confirmation enough. I looked around the apartment, noticing Michael's clothes draped over a chair, his laptop on her desk, his favorite brand of cereal in her kitchen. This wasn't just an affair. They had been living a parallel life together while I remained oblivious. I want you out of our house by the time I get back. I told Michael, my voice deadly calm now. Pack whatever you need for tonight, but I want you gone. You can come back for the rest of your things when I'm at work on Monday. Undine, be reasonable, he started. Reasonable? I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. Was it reasonable to cheat on your wife with her sister? Was it reasonable to lie to me for months? You don't get to ask me to be reasonable. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Congratulations, Jasmine. You finally took something from me that I can't replace. I hope it was worth destroying our family. I made it to my car before the tears came, blinding me so completely I couldn't drive. I called Lauren, barely able to speak through my sobs. They're together. It's true. 6 months. Oh, Undine, I'm so sorry. Where are you? I'm coming to get you. Outside her building. I can't drive. I can't. Stay there. I'm on my way. While I waited for Lauren, I sat in my car, watching Jasmine's building, half expecting Michael to come running out to explain, to beg forgiveness, to tell me it was all a terrible mistake. He didn't. Neither of them came after me. When Lauren arrived, she took one look at my face and pulled me into a fierce hug. Let's get you home. You can stay with me tonight. No, I said, finding strength in my anger. I want to go to my parents. They need to know what their precious Jasmine has done. Lauren looked uncertain. Are you sure that's a good idea right now? You're upset? I'm beyond upset, Lauren. I'm destroyed, and they need to hear it from me first before those two can spin their version of events. She nodded, understanding my need to reclaim some control in a situation where I'd had none. Okay, I'll drive you there. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back one last time at the building where my marriage had just died. The pain was unbearable, but underneath it was something else. A steely determination I'd never felt before. My sister and husband had betrayed me in the worst possible way, but this story was far from over. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house in Connecticut, my eyes swollen from a night of tears, but my resolve firmly in place. Lauren had offered to come with me, but this was a family confrontation I needed to handle alone. The familiar 2-story colonial, with its perfect landscaping and American flag by the door, looked exactly the same as it always had. Deceptively normal, just like my marriage had seemed. I was surprised to find Michael's car already in the driveway when I arrived. So they had beaten me here after all. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I parked behind him, blocking his exit. At least they wouldn't be able to leave easily when this was done. My mother answered the door, her expression immediately shifting from welcome to concern when she saw my face. Undine, darling, we weren't expecting you. The forced cheer in her voice told me everything I needed to know. They already knew. Where are they? I asked, walking past her into the foyer. Now, Undine, everyone is very upset. I think we all need to calm down and discuss this rationally. I found them in the living room. My father standing by the fireplace looking grave. Michael sitting rigid on the edge of the sofa and Jasmine curled in my father's armchair, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. They had clearly been mid-discussion when I arrived. Well, isn't this cozy? I said, standing in the doorway. The family crisis management team already assembled. Undine, my father began in his courtroom voice. We understand you're upset and you have every right to be, but shouting and accusations won't solve anything. Solve anything, I repeated incredulously. There's nothing to solve, Dad. My husband and sister have been having an affair for 6 months. My marriage is over. What exactly are you proposing to solve here? My mother hurried in with a tray of coffee cups, as if caffeine could somehow diffuse the situation. Please, let's all sit down and talk like adults. I remained standing, looking from face to face. I came here because I thought you deserved to hear directly from me what your daughter and my husband have done. But it seems they've already shared their version of events. Undine, please, Michael said, standing up. Your parents are just trying to help everyone get through this with minimal damage. Minimal damage? I laughed bitterly. That ship has sailed, Michael, or should I be more specific about what I saw through Jasmine's window yesterday? My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. What's done is done. Now we need to think about next steps about the family reputation. I stared at him in disbelief. The family reputation, that's what you're worried about. Not the fact that your youngest daughter slept with your oldest daughter's husband. Of course we're concerned about that, my mother interjected. It's a terrible situation, but these things happen in families and creating a public scandal won't help anyone. These things happen, I repeated, my voice rising. Mom, this isn't a minor disagreement over borrowed clothes. This is a fundamental betrayal. Undine has always been dramatic, Jasmine said quietly, speaking for the first time. Everything is always the end of the world with her. I spun to face her. You don't get to speak right now, not after what you've done. See? Jasmine looked at our parents. This is exactly what I was talking about. She won't even let me explain. Explain what? I demanded. How sleeping with my husband behind my back for half a year was actually a favor to me. I'd love to hear that explanation. My father stepped between us, always the peacemaker, when it suited his purposes. Girls, please. We're still a family and we need to handle this like one. Undine, your sister, and Michael have made a terrible mistake, but they care about you and they want to make things right. Make things right, I was almost shouting now. There is no making this right. And why are you defending them? Why aren't you outraged on my behalf? My mother touched my arm. Darling, no one is taking sides here, but there's something else you need to know before this goes any further. She glanced meaningfully at Jasmine. My sister placed a protective hand over her stomach. I'm pregnant, Undine. 12 weeks. The room tilted around me. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You're pregnant. With my husband's child. Michael stepped forward. We didn't plan for this to happen, but now that it has, we need to think about what's best for the baby. I looked at each of them in turn. Michael's pleading expression, Jasmine's defiant posture, despite the tears in her eyes, my father's stern concern, my mother's anxious face. So this is why you're all so eager to sweep everything under the rug, I said slowly. It's not just about the affair anymore, it's about the baby, Jasmine's baby, the golden grandchild. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? If I had been the one to cheat, would you all be gathered here talking about forgiveness and family reputation? Or would you be telling Michael how disappointed you were in me? No one answered, their silence damning. I want a divorce, I told Michael flatly. I'll have my lawyer contact you next week. Undine, please, he started. No, we're done. There's nothing left to say. I turned to my parents. And as for you two, I expected better. I've spent my entire life accepting that Jasmine was your favourite, that nothing I did was ever quite good enough. But I never thought you'd choose her over me in something like this. We're not choosing anyone, my father insisted. We're trying to minimise the damage to everyone involved. The only people damaged by exposure are the ones who did something wrong, I pointed out. But don't worry, I won't be taking out a billboard announcing what happened. I have more dignity than that. Undine, my mother said tearfully, you're still our daughter. We love you. We just want everyone to get through this. Get through this. I echoed. I'm not getting through anything. My life as I knew it is over. My marriage is destroyed. My relationship with my sister, whatever was left of it, is done. And now I find out my parents are more concerned with protecting the people who hurt me than supporting me. I headed for the door, then turned back. You know what hurts the most? None of you have actually said you're sorry for what happened to me. Not one of you. As I walked out, I heard my father call after me. I didn't stop. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Through the living room window, I could see them all still gathered, probably discussing damage control now that I'd left. The family I was born into and the family I had married into had both betrayed me in the space of 24 hours. As I pulled away from the house where I'd grown up, I realized I was truly on my own for the first time in my life. The thought was terrifying and strangely liberating. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. The divorce proceedings began almost immediately, with Michael hiring an aggressive attorney who seemed determined to paint me as unstable and unreasonable. Despite having been the one to cheat, Michael fought for everything, including our brownstone in Park Slope. It makes more sense for me to keep the house, he argued during a mediation session. Jasmine and I will need the space for the baby, and Undine can easily find an apartment. That he could say this with a straight face, that he could speak about raising his child with my sister in the home we had chosen together, renovated together, planned our own family in. It was a special kind of cruelty. My own lawyer advised me to fight, but the truth was I couldn't bear the thought of keeping the house. Every corner held memories that were now tainted. Let him have it, I told her. I want to be done with this as quickly as possible. I found a small one-bedroom in Fort Greene using most of my savings for the deposit, since our joint accounts were frozen during the divorce. The place was nothing like our beautiful brownstone. It was older, smaller, with creaky floors and outdated appliances. But it was mine, untouched by betrayal. The physical move was just one aspect of the collapse of my life. Professionally, I fell apart. I had always prided myself on separating personal issues from work, but this was beyond my capacity to compartmentalize. I missed deadlines, forgot meetings, and once broke down crying in the middle of a client presentation. My boss Diane called me into her office after that incident. I expected to be fired, but instead she closed the door and said, "Take a leave of absence. 3 months paid. Get yourself together, Undine. You're too valuable to this company to lose over a personal crisis." Her compassion nearly broke me again. I hadn't told many people about what happened, ashamed somehow, despite being the wronged party. But news travels in social circles, and the basic outline had made its way to her. "I don't know if 3 months is enough," I admitted. "Start with 3. We'll reassess then." So I found myself suddenly at home all day, with nothing but my thoughts and pain for company. I stopped answering calls from my parents, who left increasingly concerned voicemails that never actually acknowledged their role in my pain. I deleted all social media apps from my phone after seeing a picture of Jasmine and Michael together at a restaurant, her pregnancy now visible, his arm protectively around her shoulder. Lauren became my lifeline during this time. She brought groceries when I couldn't face the store, dragged me out for walks when I'd spent too many days inside, and simply sat with me through the worst crying jags. "You need therapy," she told me bluntly after finding me still in pajamas at 4 p.m. for the 5th day in a row. "This isn't something you can process alone." She was right, of course. I started seeing Dr. Bryant, a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma, twice weekly. Those sessions were grueling, forcing me to confront not just the recent betrayal, but the lifetime of family dynamics that had set the stage for it. "Your sister's behavior follows a pattern," Dr. Bryant observed during one session. "Taking what's yours has been her way of getting attention and validation her entire life, and your parents enabled it. But why was I never enough for them? The question that had haunted me since childhood. That's something your parents would need to answer. But what matters now is recognizing that their failure to validate you wasn't because you were unworthy. It was their limitation, not yours." Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I joined a support group for people going through divorces, which helped me feel less alone. I started yoga classes to reconnect with my body, which had felt foreign since the discovery of the affair. I even went on one awkward date, more to prove to myself that I could, than out of any real interest in romance. 4 months after moving out, the divorce was finalized. Michael got the house, I got a slightly larger financial settlement than originally offered, and we divided our other assets relatively cleanly. The day I signed the final papers should have felt like an ending, but instead it felt like limbo. I was legally free from Michael, but emotionally still bound by anger and grief. That same week, an elegant cream envelope arrived in my mail. Inside was an invitation to a baby shower for Jasmine hosted by my mother at their home in Connecticut. A handwritten note was tucked inside. Undine, I know things have been difficult, but this is your niece or nephew. Family should come first, especially in hard times. We hope you can find it in your heart to join us. Love, Mom. My first instinct was to rip the invitation to shreds. The audacity of asking me to celebrate the child my sister was having with my ex-husband was breathtaking. I called Lauren immediately. You won't believe what I just got. I fumed reading her the invitation. Wow, Lauren breathed. I don't even have words. The shower is in 3 weeks. Can you believe they expect me to show up with a gift and a smile like nothing happened? You're not going right. Please tell me you're not considering it. I was silent for a moment, an idea taking shape in my mind. Actually, I think I might. Undine, no. That would be torture for you. Or maybe it would be closure, I said slowly. Maybe it would be my chance to finally say everything I've been holding back. To stop being the good daughter who always takes the high road. What exactly are you thinking? I wasn't sure yet, but something had shifted inside me. For months I'd been drowning in pain, letting it consume me. But now I felt a spark of something else, a determination to reclaim my dignity, to make them all face what they'd done. I need to think about it, I told Lauren. But if I do go, I'll need your help. You know I'm with you whatever you decide. Just promise me you won't do anything you'll regret later. I wasn't worried about regret. For the first time in months, I felt something close to purpose. The baby shower wouldn't be the reconciliation my family hoped for. It would be something else entirely. My moment to finally stand up for myself in a way I never had before. In the 3 weeks leading up to the baby shower, I transformed from a woman drowning in grief to one laser-focused on a mission. I called Lauren the morning after receiving the invitation, my plans still forming, but my resolve firm. If I'm going to do this, I need solid evidence, I told her. Not just my word against theirs. What kind of evidence? Lauren asked, concern evident in her voice. Proof that Michael isn't the devoted father-to-be he's pretending to be. Proof that this whole happy family facade is just that, a facade. Lauren was quiet for a moment. You think he's cheating on Jasmine too, don't you? I'd bet my life on it, I said firmly. A man who could betray his wife with her sister isn't suddenly going to become monogamous and trustworthy. Once a pattern is established, it usually continues. After some discussion, we decided to hire a private investigator. It was expensive, almost recklessly so given my current financial situation, but I considered it an investment in my future peace of mind. The PI, a former police detective named Marquez, was professional and non-judgmental when I explained the situation. 3 weeks isn't much time, he warned. If there's nothing to find, we won't find it. And if there is, we might still miss it. I understand, but I have to try. For the first week, the reports were frustratingly mundane. Michael went to work, came home to Jasmine at my former house, occasionally met male friends for drinks. Nothing incriminating. But in the second week, Marquez hit pay dirt. He's been meeting a woman regularly at the Meridian Hotel bar. Marquez informed me during our update call. They present as more than colleagues. Yesterday, they took the elevator up to a room together and stayed for approximately 2 hours. Did you get photos? Video and stills. I'll send them over securely. The woman's name is Sophia Winters. According to her LinkedIn profile, she works at the same company as your ex-husband, but in a different department. I thanked him and hung up my heart racing. I'd been right. Part of me had hoped I was wrong, that Michael had actually found true love with my sister, as awful as that would have been for me. The reality, that he was just a serial cheater who couldn't be faithful to anyone, was somehow both vindictive and sad. When the evidence arrived in my email, I studied the images carefully. Sophia was attractive with long dark hair and a confident stride. In one photo, Michael was looking at her exactly the way he used to look at me. That mixture of admiration and desire I had once believed was reserved for me alone. Now I wondered how many other women had seen that same expression. My next step was to contact Sophia directly. This was the part of the plan Lauren had most strongly objected to, arguing it could backfire spectacularly. But I was determined. I crafted a careful email to her work address with the subject line, regarding Michael Brennan, important personal matter. In it, I introduced myself simply as Michael's ex-wife, requesting a brief meeting about a matter that could impact her. I deliberately left it vague, attaching no accusations or evidence, knowing curiosity would likely compel her to respond. She replied within hours, suggesting we meet for coffee that weekend. Her email betrayed no emotion, just a business-like efficiency that made me wonder what exactly she knew about me or my relationship with Michael. We met at a small cafe in Chelsea, far from where either of us lived or worked. I arrived early, securing a corner table that offered privacy. Sophia arrived precisely on time, her expression guarded but curious. In person, she was even more striking, poised, elegant, with an intelligence that showed in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," I began after we'd ordered. "Your email was intriguing," she replied, "though I should tell you up front that I know Michael is divorced, if that's what this is about." "It's about more than that," I cut in gently. "How much has Michael told you about his current situation?" She hesitated. "He's mentioned that his divorce was difficult, that there were complications. Did he mention that he left me for my sister, or that she's now pregnant with his child?" The shock on her face was answer enough. No, he didn't share those details." I took a deep breath. "I'm not here to cause problems for you, Sophia. I'm here because I believe you deserve to know who you're involved with." "What makes you think I'm involved with Michael?" Her defensive tone confirmed what I already knew. Instead of answering, I slid an envelope across the table. "These were taken last week at the Meridian Hotel." She opened the envelope slowly, her composure faltering as she looked at the photos. "I see. There's more you should know," I said quietly. "The baby shower for my sister and Michael's baby is next weekend. They're presenting themselves as a happy couple, excited new parents, all while he's meeting you in hotel rooms." Sophia set the photos down carefully. "Why are you telling me this? What do you want?" It was a fair question. Initially, I just wanted evidence to expose Michael for who he really is. But meeting you, I realize you're another victim in this. I thought you deserved to know the truth. And now that I know, what am I supposed to do with this information? I hadn't expected that question. In my planning, I had imagined Sophia would be angry, perhaps vengeful, eager to help expose Michael's duplicity. Her calm inquiry threw me. "That's entirely up to you," I said finally. "I can't tell you how to respond to learning your boyfriend is having a baby with someone else. I just thought you should know before you get any deeper into the relationship." She studied me for a long moment. "You're going to confront him with this at the baby shower, aren't you?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, not just for me, but for every woman he's deceived, including you. And my sister, though she's hardly innocent in all this." Sophia tapped her fingers on the table, thinking. "When is this shower exactly?" I told her the date, time, and location, surprised by her interest. "Would you be opposed to me attending as well?" she asked, her expression unreadable. This was an unexpected turn. "You want to come to my sister's baby shower?" "Not as a guest, but perhaps arriving at a strategic moment might have more impact than just showing photos." A slow smile spread across my face as I realized what she was suggesting. "Sophia, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." For the next week, Sophia and I were in regular contact, refining our plan. She provided additional evidence of her relationship with Michael. Text messages, emails, receipts from gifts he'd bought her with promises of a future together. He had told her his ex-wife was unstable and jealous, that our divorce had been brewing for years before he finally left. He had never once mentioned Jasmine or the baby. Meanwhile, I prepared myself mentally for the confrontation to come. I bought a ridiculously expensive dress that made me look better than I had in months, scheduled hair and makeup appointments, and even splurged on new shoes. If this was to be my moment of truth, I wanted to look my absolute best. The night before the shower, I met Lauren for dinner to finalize our strategy. She would drive me to my parents' house and wait nearby, ready to pick me up after the confrontation. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" she asked over dessert. "Once you do this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your family will never be the same." "My relationship with my family is already destroyed," I pointed out. "They chose Jasmine and Michael over me the moment they decided to cover up the affair. I'm just making it official." Lauren nodded, understanding but still concerned. "And you're sure about involving Sophia? You barely know her. What if she backs out or changes the plan?" "Then I proceed alone. But I don't think she will. She was just as betrayed as I was in her own way. We both deserve this closure." That night, I barely slept, running through scenarios in my head. By morning, I was operating on pure adrenaline, a strange calm settling over me as Lauren picked me up. "Ready?" she asked as we pulled up to my parents' house, already filled with cars for the shower. I looked at the colonial home where I'd grown up, where I'd always felt second best, where my husband and sister's betrayal had been condoned and concealed. More than ready, I replied, stepping out into the bright spring sunshine. It's finally time for the truth to come out. The baby shower was a picture-perfect event, exactly the kind of tasteful, expensive celebration my mother had always excelled at hosting. Pink and blue balloons they hadn't found out the gender yet, tied with silver ribbons, adorned the front entrance. A hand-lettered welcome sign proclaimed "Celebrating Baby Brennan" in elegant calligraphy. Through the front windows I could see clusters of women in spring dresses, chatting animatedly, while servers circulated with champagne flutes. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked up the familiar stone path to the front door. The expensive gift box in my hands contained not the high-end baby item listed on Jasmine's registry, but something far more valuable, the truth carefully packaged. My mother opened the door, her smile freezing when she saw me. She hadn't been entirely sure I would come, despite my RSVP. "Undine, you look beautiful." The surprise in her voice was telling. Did she expect me to arrive disheveled and broken? "Thank you, Mom. I wouldn't miss my sister's big day." The saccharine sweetness in my voice made her blink nervously. "Well, come in. Everyone's in the living room and garden. We're so glad you could make it." I stepped into the foyer, immediately spotting familiar faces. Family friends, distant relatives, my mother's garden club companions. Their conversations faltered as they noticed me curious eyes tracking my entrance. Everyone knew the story or some version of it. My presence was the equivalent of a shark swimming into a peaceful lagoon. Jasmine was holding court in the center of the living room, perched on a decorated chair like a queen on her throne. Her baby bump was prominently displayed in a tight-fitting white dress with a pale blue sash. Michael stood beside her, one hand protectively on her shoulder, playing the role of devoted partner perfectly. They both saw me at the same time. Michael paled visibly, while Jasmine's expression cycled rapidly from shock to wariness to a forced smile. "Undine, you came," she exclaimed, as if we were simply sisters, without the complication of her stealing my husband. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, approaching them with measured steps. Every eye in the room was on us now, conversation suspended as people waited to see how this reunion would unfold. "Congratulations to you both." Michael cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Thank you for coming, Undine. It means a lot to everyone." "I brought a gift," I said, extending the elegantly wrapped box. "Something special." Jasmine took it with visible relief, probably assuming my civilized behavior meant I was finally accepting their relationship. "How thoughtful. Should I open it now or wait for the gift opening later?" "Now would be perfect," I suggested. "It's something I think everyone would appreciate seeing." My father appeared at my elbow, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "Undine, so good of you to come. Very mature." I just smiled in response, watching as Jasmine carefully untied the silk ribbon on the package. The room had grown quiet, all attention focused on the gift opening. My mother hovered nearby, beaming at this apparent reconciliation. Inside the box, nestled in tissue paper, was a beautifully bound leather photo album with family memories, embossed in gold on the cover. Jasmine lifted it out, looking genuinely touched. "Oh, Undine, it's beautiful. Open it," I encouraged. I put it together myself. She settled the album on her lap and opened to the first page. Her smile faltered confusion crossing her face as she stared at the contents. Michael leaning over her shoulder to look suddenly straightened, his face draining of colour. "What is it?" my mother asked, moving closer. "Let me see the lovely gift Undine brought." The first page of the album contained not family photos, but screenshots of text messages between Michael and Sophia, intimate exchanges that left no doubt about their relationship. The following pages held photos from the private investigator. Michael and Sophia entering the hotel, embracing at a restaurant, walking hand in hand through a park. Jasmine's hands began to shake as she turned the pages. "What is this?" she whispered, looking up at me with shock in her eyes. "That's Michael's girlfriend, Sophia," I said clearly, my voice carrying in the now silent room. "They've been together for about 3 months now. While you've been preparing for the baby, he's been preparing for his next betrayal." Michael stepped forward, his face contorted with anger and panic. "This is ridiculous. Undine is making this up. These could be photos of anyone taken any time." "Actually," came a new voice from the doorway, "they're quite recent." Every head turned to see Sophia standing there exactly as we had planned. She was striking in a red dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her expression cool and composed. "Hello, Michael," she said. Surprise! The collective gasp from the assembled guests was almost theatrical. My mother pressed a hand to her chest while my father moved quickly to the center of the room as if to contain the situation. "Who is this woman?" he demanded. "What is going on here?" "I'm Sophia Winters," she replied calmly. "I've been dating Michael for the past 3 months, or at least I thought I was. He told me he was divorced, that his ex-wife was unstable. He never mentioned a pregnant sister-in-law." Jasmine turned to Michael, tears streaming down her face. "Is this true? Are you cheating on me too?" Michael's expression was wild-cornered. "Jasmine, baby, don't listen to this. It's a setup. Undine is trying to break us up because she's jealous." "I'm jealous?" I laughed, the sound harsh in the stunned silence. "Of what exactly? Your inability to be faithful, the fact that you've now betrayed both of us." I turned to address the room at large. For those who don't know the full story, my husband and sister began an affair behind my back. When I discovered them, my parents suggested we all keep it quiet to protect the family reputation. Then Jasmine got pregnant, and suddenly their betrayal was supposed to be forgotten for the sake of the baby. I looked directly at my sister. "I came here today not to hurt you, Jasmine, but to warn you. The man you think loves you is incapable of fidelity. He did it to me, he's doing it to you, and he'll do it again." Sophia stepped further into the room, stopping beside me. "Everything in that album is true. I have more evidence if anyone needs it. Emails, hotel receipts, plans we made for the future. I had no idea about any of you until Undine contacted me last week." The room erupted into chaos. Guests began whispering urgently to each other, some discreetly gathering their things to leave. My mother was attempting to usher people toward the garden, away from the unfolding drama. Jasmine was sobbing openly now the album fallen to the floor, and Michael was backing toward the door, his eyes darting between Sophia, Jasmine, and me. "You planned this," he accused, pointing at me. "You couldn't stand to see us happy, so you created this whole story." "I didn't create anything, Michael. You did this, all of it. I just made sure the truth came out." My father placed himself between us. "Undine, I think you should leave. You've made your point." I looked at him steadily. "Have I, Dad? What exactly do you think my point was?" "This vindictive display was completely unnecessary. You've ruined your sister's special day out of spite." "Vindictive spite," I repeated incredulously. "Is that what you call it when someone finally stands up for themselves, when they refuse to accept betrayal and lies?" "We can discuss this privately as a family," he insisted, glancing nervously at the remaining guests. "No, Dad. I'm done with private family discussions where truth gets sacrificed for appearances." I turned to address the room again. "I apologize to everyone for disrupting the celebration, but I believe Jasmine deserves to know who she's really starting a family with, just as I deserve to know what was happening in my marriage." Jasmine looked up at me, her makeup streaked with tears. "You did this to hurt me, to get revenge." "No, Jasmine, I did this because no one else would tell you the truth. Not Michael, not our parents, not the friends who've known all along what kind of man he really is." I moved closer to her, lowering my voice. "You took my husband, and I'll never forgive that. But no one deserves to be cheated on, not even you." My mother hurried to Jasmine's side, putting a protective arm around her. "I think you've done enough damage, Undine. Please leave." I looked around the beautifully decorated room at the pile of gifts, the sweet baby banner, the shocked faces of the guests. The perfect facade of family harmony had been shattered beyond repair. "Gladly," I said, gathering my purse. "Sophia, are you coming?" She nodded, moving to stand beside me. As we turned to leave, Michael suddenly lunged forward. "You've ruined everything," he shouted. "Both of you. This is just a misunderstanding. Sophia means nothing to me." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Really, Michael? The engagement ring you bought last week suggests otherwise. Shall I show Jasmine that receipt too?" That final revelation seemed to break something in Jasmine. She stood up suddenly, one hand protectively covering her baby bump. "Get out," she told Michael, her voice shaking but determined. "Get out of my parents' house. Get out of my life." As Michael protested, I caught my sister's eye one last time. There was no reconciliation there, no forgiveness, but perhaps a flicker of understanding passed between us. Then I walked out the front door with Sophia beside me, leaving behind the wreckage of exposed lies. Lauren was waiting in her car at the end of the block exactly as planned. As Sophia and I slid into the back seat, Lauren turned around wide-eyed. "Well, how did it go?" I let out a long breath, feeling the adrenaline of the confrontation beginning to ebb away. "It's done. The truth is out." "And how do you feel?" Lauren asked cautiously. I considered the question as we pulled away from the house, watching it recede in the rear window. The place where I'd grown up, where I'd never quite belonged, where the people who should have protected me had instead enabled my betrayal. "Free," I answered finally. For the first time in my life, I feel completely free. Looking back at that baby shower, from 5 years later, I can still feel the emotions of that day. The righteous anger, the vindication, the sadness underneath it all. What I couldn't have known then was how that moment of truth would set me on a path toward genuine healing and happiness. In the immediate aftermath, my family was in shambles. Jasmine broke up with Michael that same day, though the pregnancy complicated their separation. My parents were mortified by the public exposure, especially when several of their friends distanced themselves after learning how they had handled the situation. And Michael, exposed as a serial cheater, found his reputation in both personal and professional circles severely damaged. For several months, I had no contact with any of them. I focused instead on rebuilding my life, returning to work after my leave of absence with a renewed sense of purpose. My boss Diane, who had heard about the baby shower showdown through the grapevine, welcomed me back with unexpected warmth. "Sometimes standing up for yourself is the best therapy," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Welcome back, Undine." Work became my anchor, a place where I was valued for my talents rather than compared to anyone else. I threw myself into new projects, earned a promotion within 6 months, and slowly began to rediscover joy in my daily life. Sophia and I maintained an unusual friendship bonded by our shared experience with Michael. We'd meet occasionally for coffee or drinks, comparing notes on our recovery and dating adventures. She eventually moved to Los Angeles for a job opportunity, but we still check in with each other regularly. "We should start a support group," she joked during one of our calls. Survivors of Michael Brennan. It was through Sophia that I learned Jasmine had given birth to a baby girl named Lily. Michael was listed on the birth certificate, but had minimal involvement in the child's life, already involved with someone new by the time Lily was born. My parents were the first to reach out about a year after the baby shower incident. My mother called one evening, her voice tentative. "Undine, we miss you. Your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talking with each other. We made serious mistakes in how we handled things between you, Jasmine, and Michael." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. We agreed to meet for lunch the following week, just the 3 of us. That lunch was awkward, painful at times, but also cathartic. For the first time, my parents seemed to truly hear me as I explained how their lifelong favoritism of Jasmine had affected me, how their response to the affair had felt like the ultimate confirmation that I would always come second. "We never meant to make you feel that way," my father said, his voice thick with emotion. "We thought we were doing what was best for everyone, but we were wrong, particularly about how we handled the affair. We were so focused on avoiding scandal, on protecting the family image, that we forgot to protect you," my mother added, reaching for my hand across the table. "Can you ever forgive us?" Forgiveness didn't come immediately or easily. It took many more conversations, some with a family therapist, to begin rebuilding trust. Slowly, tentatively, we established a new relationship, one where I set clear boundaries and they made genuine efforts to respect them. Reconciliation with Jasmine took much longer. She stayed with our parents after Lily was born, focusing on being a single mother while finishing her degree online. We avoided each other at family gatherings for the first 2 years, maintaining a cold politeness when interaction was unavoidable. It was Lily who eventually bridged the gap between us. At a family Thanksgiving, when she was about 2.5, she toddled up to me with a book, asking in her little voice if I would read to her. As I sat with my niece on my lap, Jasmine watched us from across the room, something shifting in her expression. Later that evening, she found me alone in the kitchen. "Lily likes you," she said, leaning against the counter. "She's a good judge of character." "She's a wonderful little girl," I replied cautiously. "You're doing a great job with her." Jasmine took a deep breath. "Undine, I know a simple apology can never be enough for what I did. But I am sorry, truly deeply sorry. I was selfish and jealous and cruel. You didn't deserve any of it." Her words, so long awaited, brought tears to my eyes. "Why?" I asked. "Why him? Why my husband?" She shook her head, her own eyes welling up. I wish I had a good answer. I've asked myself that same question so many times in therapy. Part of it was always wanting what you had. Part of it was Michael making me feel special, playing on my insecurities. But mostly it was me making terrible choices because I was unhappy with my own life. She wiped at her tears. "It's no excuse." There is no excuse. That conversation didn't instantly repair our relationship, but it opened a door that had been firmly shut. Over time, we developed a new kind of sisterhood, more cautious than before with clearer boundaries, but also more honest. As for my personal life, I approached relationships with understandable caution after Michael. I dated casually for a while, never letting anyone get too close. Lauren worried I was closing myself off completely. Not everyone is like Michael, she reminded me during a girls' night in. You can't punish every man you meet for what he did. She was right, of course, but trust came slowly. It wasn't until I met Ryan, a landscape architect I hired to redesign the small garden of the house I'd bought in Cobble Hill, that I found myself willing to risk my heart again. Ryan was patient, transparent, and understood without being told that I needed to take things slowly. 3 years into our relationship, we're now engaged planning a small wedding for next spring. The most unexpected outcome of everything that happened was discovering my own strength. Before I had defined myself largely through others' eyes, as a daughter trying to earn approval, as a sister living in Jasmine's shadow as Michael's wife. The betrayal and its aftermath forced me to stand alone to define myself by my own standards. In therapy, I came to recognize that exposing Michael at the baby shower wasn't just about revenge, though that was certainly part of it. It was about refusing to participate in the lies anymore, about claiming my own voice after a lifetime of being silenced or dismissed. My relationship with my family will never be what it once was, but in many ways it's healthier now. My parents make consistent efforts to treat me and Jasmine equally. Jasmine and I may never be best friends, but we've found a way to be in each other's lives that respects our complicated history. And Lily, now entering kindergarten, brings a joy to family gatherings that helps heal old wounds. As for Michael, I heard he eventually moved to Chicago after his career in New York faltered. Sophia told me he reached out to her once looking to reconnect, but she blocked his number immediately. Some people never change, and I'm grateful every day that I discovered the truth about him before we had children together. The journey from that devastating discovery to where I am today wasn't easy or straightforward. There were days when grief overwhelmed me, nights when anger kept me awake, moments when forgiveness seemed impossible. But gradually, pain gave way to perspective. I learnt that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary, that family loyalty shouldn't require self-sacrifice. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who hurt you, even if only temporarily. Most importantly, I learnt that while betrayal can break your heart, it doesn't have to break your spirit. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from avoiding pain, but from moving through it with your integrity intact. Sometimes the family you create for yourself, friends like Lauren, unexpected allies like Sophia, partners like Ryan, can be more supportive than the one you were born into. If you're going through something similar, remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, that you deserve honesty and respect in all your relationships, that standing up for yourself might be the hardest and best thing you ever do, and that beyond the pain of betrayal, there can be a life more authentic and fulfilling than the one you lost. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to make a difficult stand for yourself, or how you've handled betrayal in your own life. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's challenges, and share with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggle. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to finding what you truly need.